Many women with whom I speak during my sessions about the nice guys in their lives said the exact same thing. They didn't say they were bad. They didn't say they mistreated them. They said something more alarming. That there's nothing in there, there's no energy, there's nothing that draws me in. And when we keep going deeper into the discussion on why so many of them end up with men that they usually call assholes, the answer is simple. At least they have an edge. You feel they exist. This video is exactly about this absence, about how kindness, when it becomes a survival strategy instead of a choice, doesn't just make you vulnerable, it makes you invisible. And it's about also this harsh reality that you are waiting for permission to take up space, but nobody's going to give it to you. You're waiting for your kindness to be rewarded. It will never be rewarded. You're waiting for others to see how hard you're trying. They won't see it, not because they don't want to, but because what you're hiding is exactly what needs to be shown. Today we'll talk about the nice guy syndrome, not as a moral failure, but as a psychological trap that cuts you off from your vital energy. And we will see how to reclaim what was taken from you with some simple exercises. Let me pause here and say that you help immensely if you like my video and subscribe to my channel. It's the only way I can make this work. I'm Dimitris, I'm a trauma-informed coach of style psychology, and I share tools and insights on how to live a better life. Before we continue, I want you to know that this video is for men and women who recognize the nice guy pattern, but also for mothers and partners who play a role in creating or healing this syndrome. And also I want you to know that this is educational content, it's not therapy. If you need professional support, reach out to a specialist or find my information in the description below to have a session with me. So what is this all about? What is the nice guy syndrome? And it's not about being polite, because politeness is a virtue. What we're examining here is a systematic tendency to put others' needs and expectations above your own, not from love, but from fear. And when you do that, these four symptoms appear together. The first is approval seeking. Whatever you do, you calculate it consciously or unconsciously to gain someone's acceptance, even from strangers, even from people you don't care about. The second thing is conflict avoidance, which is when the fear of confrontation is so intense inside you that you prefer to swallow something that bothers you rather than say it clearly out loud. The third is about perfectionism, and it's about perfectionism when it is used as a mask. You must hide your flaws because you believe that if something bad shows, then you'll lose the acceptance of others. And the fourth is a deep belief that if I'm good enough to everyone, then my life will be better. And this belief produces exactly the opposite result of what you want. It keeps you in a state of perpetual powerlessness. But where does this syndrome of nice guy come from? To understand the syndrome, we need to go back to the first years of life. You see, every child has a fundamental need to be accepted exactly as they are. When acceptance is given conditionally, like for example, I will love you if you're quiet, or if you're good, or if you don't upset me, then the child learns that their true self is dangerous. So they hide the anger, they hide their needs, they hide their reactions, and build a false self, which is that self that's good without complications. And this is survival strategy, it's not weakness. It's adaptation to an environment that doesn't tolerate the whole child. And the problem is that this strategy remains active in our adult life, in situations where there's no real threat. The nervous system, which learned that conflict means rejection, continues to back down even when it doesn't need to. So what happens then is that your nervous system, which learned that conflict means rejection, continues to back down even when it doesn't need to. And there's another thing that we need to talk about here, which is about the aggression that was never expressed. Because this piece particularly affects boys, but has consequences for everyone. You see, around the first year of life, every child begins a process of psychological separation from the mother. This is what we call individuation in psychoanalysis. But for boys, this separation is often expressed through aggression, not necessarily violence, but there's a drive, there's a force, there's a resistance, there's a no that defines boundaries. But what we do as a society is that we demonize this type of aggression. We say, sit still, don't do that, don't do this again, be a good boy, I will not love you anymore. And especially in a society in which everything masculine is deemed as toxic, then every time aggression shows up in boys, then it is punished. And especially in a society which is obsessed that every masculine trait is toxic, every time aggression shows up, it is punished. So the boy learns that what makes me feel strong is bad. So he keeps it locked inside and gets cut out from his vital energy. And what adds to that is that without a masculine model to show the boy how to channel this force and tame it for the good of others, the boy remains trapped. He remains a passive observer of his life, constantly seeking the approval of what he never received. Carl Jung had this idea that sounds simple but runs really deep in each and every one of us. Each of us has a shadow, which is a set of characteristics, of impulses, of energies that we have repressed into our unconscious because we were told they're bad. For the nice guy, the shadow is filled with exactly what was demonized, which is anger, desire, aggression, ambition, the need for space, the sexual drive, competition, the desire for power. These things do not disappear, they just hide. And Jung tells us something critical. What you do not integrate consciously, it controls you from the unconscious, which means that the energy you don't consciously recognize comes out anyway in ways you cannot control, which is being passive-aggressive, the liking of martyrdom, the silent rage, the sudden explosion after months and months of backing down. But there's something worse than how the shadow emerges, and it's what happens when you keep it locked up. David Deida, in his book The Way of the Superior Man, describes something most men recognize immediately. The dark masculine energy of the warrior, the one who could face death and kill when necessary, is an essential part of you. Today's current fashion is to suppress both the dark masculine and the dark feminine, so we have a large population of wimpy men and polite women. What Deida is saying here is not that you need to become violent. He's saying that when you suppress that dark part of yourself, the drive, the force, the desire, the assertion, you don't just suppress those. You suppress also your sexual assertiveness, your creativity, your ego, your thirst for experience, your ability to demand power. And the women who speak about nice guys, they never say they're bad guys. They say that there's nothing there to be drawn to. No edge, no tension, no presence. And that's exactly the reason why. And while nice guys are trying to avoid the dark side of their masculine energy, they also repress many other aspects of this energy force. And it's because what we said earlier, that in your attempt to avoid the dark side of your masculinity, you also repress many other aspects of your life's force. And here you have to remember something really crucial, that whoever cannot be dangerous cannot be virtuous, because virtue isn't the absence of power, it's the taming of it. Now let's see what it costs you, because the nice guy syndrome has 3 very specific consequences. The first is that you lose yourself, because when your sense of worth is based on other people's opinions, then your identity depends on external sources. Your life becomes a continuous effort to guess what others want and give it to them before they even ask it. And while you do this, you do not pursue goals you find intrinsically worthwhile and meaningful. You don't discover your true potential. You become a slave to others' needs, and your worth becomes contingent on how much they approve you, which makes you passive, which makes you easily used, which makes you unable to shape your own fate. The second thing that happens is that you lose relationships, because despite the obsession with being liked, you end up without deep relationships, because human connection doesn't happen through perfection. It happens through flaws. It happens through vulnerability. It happens through friction and through true expression. So when you hide your true self behind a mask of impeccable niceness. The other person doesn't connect with you, they connect with the mask. And you feel alone because nobody sees you, and also they feel alone because they cannot connect with you. You have to remember that people are not drawn to perfection. They're drawn to shared interests, they're drawn to shared problems, and they're drawn to your life's energy. The third thing that comes as a cost is that you lose your health. You see, Gabor Mate, a physician specializing in the mind-body connection, observed something disturbing. Time after time, it was the nice people, those who compulsively put others' expectations and needs ahead of their own and who repressed their so-called negative emotions, who showed up with chronic illness. These patients had a higher likelihood of cancer and poorer prognosis. And there's a lot of research on ALS patients that showed that the most agreeable and nice among them also had the fastest deterioration, which means that suppressing protective anger, which is the anger that defends your boundaries, has a direct consequence on the body. So you have to remember that kindness, when it's a mask, it becomes poison. Now let's talk about recovery. Let's talk how do we get out of this, because recovering from the nice guy syndrome doesn't mean becoming harsh or indifferent to others. It just means reclaiming what was cut off. And here are some steps to do that. Step 1, put yourself first. And this may sound like selfishness to the nice guy, but it's not. It's a corrective move, recognizing that to give meaningfully to others, you must first exist yourself. And yes, some people will react because if they are used to your availability and they will feel that you deny it from them, then it is only normal that they walk away. But you don't need everyone's approval to have a meaningful life. So here's one exercise that you should do this week. This week, say no to a request you usually accept without wanting to. You don't need an explanation. Just say, I cannot do that. And notice what you feel inside. Step 2 is to cultivate your personal power, because personal power isn't immoral. It is a necessary life skill that you must have. And the truth is that much of this power comes from opening what you have closed, which is the dark energy data describes. That doesn't mean you're going to be violent. It means that you're going to integrate what you have repressed. And Jung says it clearly. We cannot change anything unless we accept it. Condemnation does not liberate. It oppresses. What does this mean for you? That you need to recognize the anger that you hide, not to attack, but to protect your boundaries. You need to recognize the desire that you hide, whether it is sexual, creative, material. It is not a sin. It's an energy that you need to master. And you also need to recognize the competition that hides inside you, which is that drive to surpass, to win, to prevail. And this is what makes you alive. When you integrate the shadow, you don't become a better person despite your aggression. You become a whole person with your aggression integrated. Step 3 is to start with your body. Socrates said it's a shame to grow old without seeing the strength and beauty your body can achieve. Because physical exercise isn't just health. It's the first tangible contact with the power you denied yourself. So go lift weights, go run, learn how to walk into a room and feel that you occupy space. And here's a second exercise I want you to do, which is the letter to your shadow. Take a piece of paper and write, these are the things I do not allow myself to feel or express. And write at least 5 of them. And then next to each one, write, if I allowed myself this, then I would, and see what comes out. Because I'm sure what you will see isn't monsters. It will be energy. And I want us to close with 2 messages. The first is for mothers and partners. Because if you love someone who's a nice guy, the greatest service you can offer isn't to protect them. It is to challenge them. It is to inspire them to take space, to encourage them to say no, even to you. You have to resist the tendency to fill the gaps their passivity creates. And I'm sorry to say that if you do not do that, you do not truly love them. You love yourself more than them, because love that liberates is harder than love that holds. And the second message is to those who recognize themselves as being the nice guys. I want you to know that you are not bad for having needs. You are not dangerous for having anger. You're not selfish for putting yourself first. What they told you to hide, the anger, the drive, the need for space, the desire, the ambition, these aren't your flaws. They are a capital that no one taught you how to invest. The world doesn't need another person hiding. It needs you whole. Until next time, don't forget to ask yourself, what part of myself have I hidden to keep the peace? I'm Dimitris of Psychology, and I share tools and insights on how to build a better life. If you want to have a session with me, you'll find all the details below.